Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Meeting Protocol Monthly Podcast, where we chat with some of the coolest people in the business and bring you useful and relevant content and information about what's happening in the world of meeting planning. I am Dora Figueredo, the head of events and education at Meeting Protocol, coming to you, as always, from New Jersey. I hope that someday I'll be able to come to you from a much cooler place, but for now, it is my living room. Today's guest is Carter Parrish, a longtime senior event producer with over 12 years of events and marketing under his belt. He's worked with some really fantastic clients such as Samsung, Uber Eats, Liquid Death, which I actually learned about for the first time at IMEX 2 years ago when they handed me a Liquid Death can. And I was like, what are you giving me? But it was just delicious water. I don't know, is water delicious? Yeah, hydrating. It felt good to drink it. AT&T, MLS, which is a personal favorite of mine, being a Red Bulls fan, living in New Jersey. Unfortunately, being a Red Bulls fan means you have to deal with a lot of losing, but I do love my Red Bulls, and way more than I can name in this quick introduction. He is currently a senior producer and lead of growth at Robot Proof, which is a great name, world-class marketing and strategy consultancy, as well as a founding member of WXO, World Experience Organization, which I definitely want to hear more about, which is a membership institution dedicated to improving the quality of experiences and enhancing opportunities for experience creators. So thank you, Carter, so much for being with us today. I'm looking forward to hearing all about your journey in the events and marketing industries. So tell us where you're joining from.
Well, thank you for having me, first of all. And I also share, as I tell you, I'm in Atlanta. So I share your pain of losing. Our Braves was the best team in baseball and we were the first ones out. So we share that in common.
Okay, so your background is super interesting. You started in marketing and sales for sports, soccer. So tell us a little bit about your career journey and what got you to where you are now.
Yeah. So right out of school, I got into what was called grassroots marketing, which was relatively new to me at the time. But I worked for soccer.com, which was a big soccer catalog where people bought soccer apparel, equipment, clubs bought uniforms from. But what the goal was again, grassroots is true definition. I was out at soccer tournaments, at soccer camps, on the road all the time, driving around in a car wrapped as a soccer ball, to create raffles and engage with players and parents to try to help build their database, because the catalog company, that's how they got their product out there, was via mail. So I was out doing raffles and all of these different things to just try to gather data. Very nitty gritty, had to get creative. We had to find our own events to go to and tournaments. We had to negotiate our own deals. So I was intrigued by marketing, but that was the only kind of marketing that I knew. So I did that for a while. And then the more relationships I made, I started to fall in love with sales. So I stayed at the same company, but I moved over into the team sales side of things and started selling to those clubs. It was very easy for me to sell soccer because I've played it my entire life. And so I really enjoyed the people that I was working with. Sometimes I was calling on coaches that I used to have as a kid growing up. So I fell in love with the sales side of things and the relationship side, but I could use some of the marketing, the grassroots marketing experience that I had to do that. Well, I bounced around within that company a little bit, and then the division actually closed. But I loved the sales aspect. So I went a completely different direction and got into, I guess you could consider it tech sales. I sold ID equipment. So if you had a student ID at school, or a firefighter's accountability badge, or a police officer's access card, or just a card that you use to get into your building, all of that kind of stuff, anything around producing an ID and the back end systems of that's what I sold. Very interesting. Again, kind of nitty gritty, finding opportunities on your own, and sitting down and talking to people and just understanding what their pain points are and how this system could help make their lives easier. I did that for a couple of years, enjoyed it. And then my wife got an opportunity to go overseas and work. It was between Istanbul, Dublin, or London. We chose London just with some language barriers. We thought it'd be easier to jump right into London. Plus, the Olympics were coming in 2012, and this was in 2011. So we moved over to London. I quit my job, and we were only supposed to be there for about 18 months. So I was going to just find something temporarily. I planned to, volunteer or do stuff during the Olympics, and couldn't really find anything. Turns out people kind of sign up for that stuff well in advance. It's not a quick whim. We need a volunteer for the Olympics. So, but the benefit was her company sponsored me as well as her. So I was able to work.
Right.
So I could go out and try to find a job, try the sales gig over there. Did not enjoy it. Actually quit for the first time in my life, quit a job after about a month. It's a lot of cold calling, not the kind of sales that I like to do. I like to be face to face. I like to be out there. Was not that. So I reached back out to my soccer.com connections, the owners of soccer.com. And I was like, look, you guys are global. I'm sure you know people in the UK. I'm trying to get back into the marketing game. Do you know anyone? They introduced me to someone that had a small agency over there. He unfortunately wasn't hiring, but he said, hey, I'm about to meet with a general manager from MKTG, and they're opening an office in London. Let me sit down and talk to him and see what happens. So they met, two American guys, one out of New York, one out of Chicago. So obviously felt comforting in that. Sat down with them and was like, look, I just want to get out of the flat. I just want to work. I don't care what it is. Like, bring me in. I'm green, but I'm willing to learn. So I jumped on with them on a temporary basis. And my first project was the Nike British 10K, which was a massive race in the center of London.
Yeah.
And just started to develop and found the love for events again. They started giving me more and more things to grow as a producer, building a work back schedule, managing a budget, finding vendors, vetting them, all of this kind of stuff that I never had to do in grassroots. But I started to do that, and I really started to fall in love with it. And I was with them for almost 10 years at MKTG. And then I moved over to Robot Proof, which was actually started by some former MKTGers. So still in the game, still doing it.
Wow, what a cool journey. Also now, for those of you watching on YouTube, your background makes sense. I see the underground, the eye behind you. Yeah, that's so cool. What did you major in college?
I was just a business management degree. So I got a little bit of everything. You got your finance class, you got your marketing, you got your sales, communications, all of that kind of stuff. So it was kind of a broad stroke in the business game, but I played soccer in college too. So I also tried to manage something where I could juggle a little bit of both, being on the road a lot. So.
Got it. Interesting. Yeah. So cool.
Yeah.
So what was it like to make that shift from marketing and sales into being a producer? I mean, it sounds like it was like a natural path, the way that they trained you and got you going, but I don't know. Yeah. Did it just feel right, like the right next step for you?
It felt like something that it did have its similarities. I mean, again, at the end of the day, experiential marketing, other marketing, you're still selling. You're maybe just selling a brand as a whole, which has multiple products, rather than selling a particular product. So there was a lot of similarities in that. And again, I got to interact with people and kind of sell our services, which I was already doing anyway. So that was an easy transition. It was all of the intricacies that go into producing an event. Again, managing the budget, dealing with venues and prices being higher than you budgeted, and trying to get creative with how to stretch dollars. And all of that stuff was stuff that I never had experience in and had to learn. And that's, the best way to learn it. My old boss used to call it fire hose training. I'm just going to throw you in there and I'm going to blast you as hard as I can. And you'll go through experiences and you'll figure it out. It took a while. It took about 6 months to start to grasp it, but there's a lot of similarities between grassroots sales and producing an event.
Yeah. I feel like your analogy of the fire hose just like is life and events in general. Being at an event is just like fire hose constantly going off.
Well, you can plan as much as you would like, but life happens and things happen, and you just got to get in there and figure it out.
Yeah. So it seems like obviously you're extremely successful in your career. What do you see as what makes somebody a really strong experiential producer? Because I think that a lot of people who are not in events think that an event producer, like anybody can do events. And like, technically, maybe, sure. I think you need to be a good project manager and have good logistical lens. Not everybody's good with logistics and spreadsheets and details, but I feel like it is especially an experiential producer, like requires a specific kind of skill set. And I'd love to know what you think makes somebody strong at that.
For sure. I've learned a lot along the way that there is more than one way to do something right. And I think some people are, this is the way to do it. We've tested it works, and you kind of go down that path. That's how you teach people to do it. I think having an open mind and letting people figure it out on their own is a great way to help train other experiential producers. Because again, it's going to come at you in different ways at different times. There's different ways to handle it. So you got to wear a lot of hats. I would say you've got to be a great listener, not just from the client side, but you've got to listen internally. I say we have to be a little bit of a parent sometimes between creatives and account management. You've got to be, again, creative. You've got to be a problem solver. You've got to be all of these things. But I think one of the most important things is just, being honest with your clients and helping them understand things along the way and communicate when prices are higher than you expected and why. Just being completely transparent builds trust, and then you get a little bit more flexibility and leeway when you're doing a project. When something goes wrong, they trust that you're going to figure out a way to do it, and you're keeping them in mind. So that's pretty important. And being accountable and saying sometimes I mess up, that's okay. But raising that hand and being like, that's on me, but I've got you covered. So there's quite a few things to make it a good experiential producer. But again, there's tons of ways you can do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think that somebody who doesn't have a marketing or sales background could come in and be really strong off the bat?
I think you can. Depends on how strong and what the ask is and what the need is. It's definitely, yes, fire hose training is a thing, but I chipped away at it a little bit. I kind of sat behind the scenes and saw. I was part of all of the development of stuff, but I wasn't necessarily as hands-on. Every now and then they would throw me an opportunity and be like, hey, can you do this, and to help you learn. I don't know if you could jump right in. Some people could, but I've always been a huge believer, and Gary Vee has always said this: you can teach any skill. If you get the right people with the right attitude and the right work ethic, you can teach them anything.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. So I love that you work for a place called Robot Proof, which sounds intentional, especially with the AI talk all around us right now. So how did that name come about, and how did you end up there?
Yeah. So when we do events, yes, no event is the same, but a lot of the process can get a little bit robotic at times. Get an RFP, fill it out, submit it, get awarded, produce the event, you're done. There's a lot more that goes into it, and what Robot Proof prides itself on is human connection and strategy and asking questions and pushing the clients a little bit more to get to the real root of what the goal is. But sometimes if you push that discovery a little bit and ask a few more questions, you can get a deeper answer that's maybe not just one event, it's maybe more holistic across multiple. So we pride ourselves on questions, discovery, strategy, research to understand what the ultimate goals are, which is, yes, AI is starting to do that. If you type in a bunch of things and say, go find this, but there's not much of a better opportunity than a human connection, asking those questions, understanding, reading empathy, reading emotions, doing all of those things that are very human centric, which is where the name kind of came from. And it's all backed on our good thinking, leading with learning, education, all of these things. And the people that started it started to see that at some of the bigger agencies. They were getting a little bit robotic, and they were getting asked from clients for things they're like, we don't do that. We're event production. That's what we do. But there was so many other things that they could have done creatively, strategically. And so they branched off, and we're like, let's start our own thing, and let's focus on those things where we can have a Cape stack, and those are great, and we can show all the stuff that we do. But let's have conversations with people. Let's understand what their pain points are so we can show where we add value and fill ourselves in that way, rather than say, we can do all your events. It's like, well, maybe that's not what they need. Maybe they just need some content. Maybe they need a rebrand. So we try to sell ourselves and just our brains and our services that way. They started in January of 2020, which was perfect timing for events.
Yeah.
And COVID hit in March. So a team of about 4 or 5 fellow MKTGers branched off, and they were like, all right, we're going to do some events. And then COVID hit, and they relied a lot again on content, VR, rebranding, microsites, things that didn't involve events to just kind of get by. I joined the team in November of 21, or September of 21, and in November of 21, we did our first in-person event. So they went almost 2 years not doing an event and starting an agency, and they made it through. Had to deal with some ups and downs for sure during COVID, but once events came back, we eased back into it. We had some great relationships with previous clients. People bounced around, moved, came to us with like, I love the way y'all always thought, like, let's do some stuff together. So I joined them, and in September of 21, and been there a couple years now.
It sounds like a really great team to work for. To be able to survive those first 2 years, the tenacity and like the partnership necessary to survive that together is pretty big.
You said it, tenacity, and then just the culture. That was everybody rolled up their sleeves, and they were like, we may have to take pay cuts during this time or whatever needed to do, because they were passionate about what they were trying to accomplish. And I think that helped them in getting creative of like how other ways, what's other revenue streams we could do, how could we offer our services, because we're all smart people, we're all creative people. So yeah, they tenacious is definitely one of the things, but they're go-getters. It's a great culture of people that want to do whatever's necessary.
Yeah. So what is your role exactly? How do you fit in and work with the teams, and how does your work extend beyond events?
Yep. So we've grown a lot. I was the 9th person hired in November of 21. We are over 30 people now. I think 32 to be exact.
Congratulations.
So thank you. So we've got strategy, we've got digital, we've got UX and UI, we've got VR, we've got producers, we've got account managers. We've got creative teams. We built out the things that we noticed were necessary in some of the projects that we were getting. And I came in as a producer, but was always on the back end trying to grow and diversify our portfolio, and grow the business and get robot proof out there and educate people on who we are. Because again, been around for almost over 3 years now, but a year and a half of that was COVID. So we're still relatively young. So I am still producing, but I am leading more towards the growth and the business development side of things. But again, we all wear different hats, and we try to help out, and we get stretched thin sometimes, which is a good thing. It means we're busy. But I will continue to help produce and account manage. And sometimes I'll do a whole project by myself, which is okay. The smaller ones, that can be done. That's the benefit of being able to do different things and have done different things. So I do produce, but it's mainly on the business development side of things at this moment.
Okay, great. And how does WXO fit in with all this work?
So I met James through another friend, Jeff Fortman, who's at Brand Innovators, and he introduced me to James. And you want to talk about some smart people. That organization is 300 plus of the most creative people on the planet.
Wow.
You get on a phone call or a Zoom call on one of their fireside chats, and there's literally 300 people on there, and they're from everywhere in the world. So intrigued by wanting to learn new things, what's out there, push myself to be better and ask questions and learn from the best in different verticals. It's not all marketing. It's not all events. It's just experiences, which can go across a lot of different channels. So it was something that I wanted to get to be a part of, to one, be able to be a resource and help people with my experience, but also to continue to learn.
Yeah.
Um, it- to get on a call again, I learn something new on every call. Um, and the group is fantastic. Again, they're always asking questions and pushing you um, to think a little bit differently, a little bit more outside of the box, and how to think what the consumer journey is and touch points all along the way. So it was strictly continuing to grow and
Mhm.
learn.
It sounds like the real life application of the advice, don't be the smartest person in the room.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. My old boss used to say, and I'll probably butcher this, but he was like, you should show up to every call or meeting already knowing that you're only 10% right.
Huh, that's
That you're walking in, you don't know anything,
interesting.
and just listen and absorb, and then add your value when you see fit. But come into the room ready to learn.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah,
Learner's mindset is really the most important piece of any career journey, I think.
for sure.
That's great. Um, so I saw that you added a new title to your role, lead of growth. So what does that mean, and how does that play in your day-to-day role, especially if you are still producing?
Yes. So again, leader of growth, it's not, we don't want to say we're sales or business development. We are trying to grow the business, but it is more, um, again, diversification of clients that we do. We want to try to showcase skills in different avenues. We Robot Proof does a lot, and it's hard, and we're in the process daily of working on, what does the website look like? What do our capes look like? How do we showcase all the stuff that we can do? Um, and we're working through things. So I'm working with leadership. I'm part of that, those conversations of, how we show up, how do we promote ourselves? What's your elevator pitch? What does a one sheeter look like? What kind of stuff should we send to clients? If we do send to capes, let's try to find relevant cases and like how all of that stuff works, which is part of the business development of things of growing Robot Proof to be able to market ourselves in a good way. And an easy way. Because again, you can go to our website and you see all the stuff that we've done. It's like all cool stuff. But if I'm looking for a particular service, I don't know how to find, like, if you've done that, which we probably have, but again, showcasing it on our website or in a Cape Stack is tough.
Yeah.
So it's getting out there, having conversations, going to shows, trying to market Robot Proof, like getting booths at shows to showcase like interactive with people. So coming up with ways to advertise what we do in the game and how we can help you.
Yeah, sounds great. Where is your team based, like across the US, the whole world?
Yep. So we've got HQ is in Venice, California. We've got quite a few people in LA. We've got a team in Chicago. We've got myself in Atlanta. I'm the lone guy holding down the fort. We've got a team in New York. We've got a team in Denver. We've got a team in London. And we, through a lot of our previous work, we have a lot of great partnerships all over the world. From, we did Beats by Dre work in Australia at the Australian Open. So we've done stuff everywhere in every continent. So we have partners, and we rely a lot on those great relationships to help us create that reach. But we are considered a global agency because we are scattered all over.
Yeah, that's great. Robot Proof started during the pandemic, so obviously there was like a big change. Everything had to change. And now I think things are, in some ways, they are feeling more like they did, pre-2020, but things have evolved quite a bit. So I'm wondering how you see events evolving over the next 5 years or so.
Yeah, I mean, AI is a big part of it. Um, you know, I see AI being used for my particular use. I see it being more, helping manage all of the balls that are in the air, and helping to streamline that and gather data. I feel like it's hard to do that. Everyone always feels like experiential is hard to, it's hard to read the ROI. It's hard to justify the cost.
Yeah.
But I've met with a couple of great folks and another partner agency that does a return on emotion, which I love,
Ah,
and they can actually help track how people felt before going into an experience versus after, which is fantastic, because that's the only way we're really going to be able to show our return on investment for experiential type of events. But as it evolves, I think personalization is going to be huge. People are going to want things for them and be able to control their own journey and how they experience things and when to do things. Um, I work with some pretty smart people at Robot Proof, but also have great partners out in the world that have created different things like the return on emotion, the wheel of belonging, like
Mm.
thinking about all these things in events that are much deeper than just pushing a product. That I
Yeah.
think that that's going to become a bigger part of when you're planning an event. You've got to go deeper.
Yeah. So I have a question that I should have asked at the very beginning, but it only just occurred to me now. I think that some listeners of this podcast may be early on in their career and not fully understand like what experiential actually means. Like, isn't every event an experience? So could you give us a little clarification on that?
Yeah, sure. Experiential is it can carry a lot of forms, and it's best if you can let the people tell their story. I always feel like it's more impactful when you get testimonials from people. Let them tell you about the product or the brand or whatever, rather than me tell you or a brand tell you this is what you should feel. Let them experience it in their own way at their own pace and be able to tell their own story. Because again, people trust people. They may not trust a logo, but they may trust their friends who experience the same thing. So anything, even trade shows can be experiential. They're not necessarily fall under that category when you're researching things and understanding what experiential is. But anything that you can do to create an experience for someone that creates a reaction or creates a connection with them is, every event that could happen. And that's why they don't classify everything as experiential necessarily. You go to a gala, it's an awards, you go and have a nice dinner, some good music, get your awards, and you go. Maybe there's a photo op.
Yeah.
That's like one experiential piece of it. It is an experience, but I think trying to create connections
Mhm.
and something that's relevant to people that they want to be a part of is creating that makes it experiential over just another event.
Yeah, that's right. There's so many trade show booths I've walked into where it's like I'm walking in to get a flyer or I get a coffee or something, like somebody has spent
Yep.
a lot of money on this booth and all I'm doing is walking in and out.
Yep.
Um, it's just sometimes it's like if you had taken one extra step in that
Yep.
planning, you
I
could.
was just at IMAX last week in Vegas, and I'll tell you, as a first timer, I was overwhelmed. It was a lot. It was big, 17,000 people.
Yeah.
Um, but you could tell going in with a mindset of a event producer
Mhm.
that the people that attend that show is not my audience, but I
Right.
wanted to see the booths and what people did. And some people took the route of, I'm going to go through show services. I'm going to see what they offer. I'm going to put a
Yeah.
logo on it. And I'm going to do exactly what you said, where I'm going to sell my product. I'm going to cram it with people that are going to push whatever that is. Then there were some that were like, even in a 10 by 10 space, it doesn't have to be an 80 by 80 or something like that. You can still do it in a small space that used different materials and lighting and just showed an effort to make something welcoming that people wanted to come in. And then, yeah, you can talk to them and sell your services, but visually, you got to bring them in. And I walked past many booths where I was like, I like that product in there, but their booth was like, I'm going to rather go check out somebody else's that spend a little bit more time and effort and creativity and
Right.
just be like, I love your booth. I
Yeah.
just went by booths and was just like, I love what you did with this. And it was great.
Yeah.
Good experience.
That's one of the highest compliments is when so I had a booth at Bio International Convention in Boston earlier this year, and somebody from a competitor came to our booth and said, I loved your booth so much last year that I modeled my booth this year on like how I felt when I walked into yours last year. And we were like, there's literally no greater compliment, that's
Nope.
fantastic when
And
another person recognizes that.
100%. And it's this industry, people think like it's a fight for business. And yeah, you're competing with each other, but that's another thing I think Robot Proof does really well is we go in as partners. I mean, I'd say 75% of our business is other partner agencies. that we
Wow.
help them supplement things that they can't do or don't have the bandwidth to do. So we partner with some of the bigger PR agencies. We partnered with other actual agencies that are technically direct competitors, but you've got to go in with that open mind, and to have a compliment like that to your booth should be welcomed. And I'm glad that person came over and said something. They could have been like, "Oh man, that's good. I'm gonna take notes. I'm gonna do," but they came over and told you
Yeah.
that. I love that. I love that aspect of this industry, and that's a it's a brave person to come in and do that, because again, they could have just taken notes and gone and done their own thing and copied you and
Right.
moved on.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I love that you guys work with so many partners. I think that's actually one of the coolest things you've said in
Yeah.
this podcast so far. It's that partnership. Event producers so often work alone. They work in silos. And so that partnership is key, because what we actually want to do is give the attendees the best experience possible. And that partnership is what makes that possible.
100%. 100% agree.
So we're down to our last question here.
Yeah.
What's the coolest event that you've been to, either as an attendee or as the planner or producer?
I will have to say, Sundance.
Ooh.
Sundance. I've only been once, but every year I'm chomping at the bit to go. It is so cool. It's the combination of the film side of things, but then there's so many brands doing experiential and activations and stuff. And I may be a little biased, but the event that we did for McMillions for HBO was one of the coolest activations I've ever been a part of, from the storytelling of how it showed up to being the only event at all of Sundance. If you haven't been to Sundance, everything is credentialed. You have to have a credential to get into anything, even brand stuff, parties, everything. You got to have a cred. You got to know somebody. We were the only public open event that people could come in, free food, free drink, experience. Lines were out the door. People loved it, and coming in and out, and just how authentic it was to the story. So I don't know if you know McMillions, what the story was around the docuseries with the Monopoly game.
Yeah.
So that was the whole theme inside of it, was around that. And we gave away prizes that were from the original 90s game. We gave out a jet ski. We gave out a Sega Genesis. We gave out, so the level of authenticity of it, and watching people's faces peel off of McDonald's piece and win something. It was awesome. It was what we call lightning in a bottle, in my opinion. That was hands down my favorite one. And again, wandering up and down Main Street, it's pretty incredible. I would highly encourage anyone to get to Sundance if you can.
You have to be invited to Sundance, or?
I don't think so. I think you can go and enjoy the films and stuff. It definitely helps if you know people and you can get credentials into some of the special stuff. But I do not think you have to be invited. I think you can just go.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to put that on my bucket list now.
Yep.
Okay. Well, Carter, thank you so much. This has been a really great conversation. I've really enjoyed learning about, that sounds like very generic. I've enjoyed learning about you, but truly this has been really interesting as a person who has never worked for like a boutique agency like this. I love learning about what you guys do. So this is really fascinating to me. So, and that's the whole point of this podcast. The reason I started this podcast a year and a half ago was because I was like, I've been in events for over 10 years, and sometimes I have no idea what other people do. And I thought, I think other people would be super interested to know what others in the field do as well. So thank you so much for sharing your story. And for those who want to learn more about you and your work, where can they go?
They can go on LinkedIn. I'm there. If you're in Atlanta, reach out. If you're visiting Atlanta, reach out. I'm happy to make time and love meeting people in person. And thank you for the opportunity and what you're doing. I love that you're helping spread the joy of event planning.
No problem. Thank you. And thank you so much to all our dear listeners and Meeting Protocol fans for checking out this episode. Don't forget to go to meetingprotocol.org to sign up for our newsletter, which includes links to the new podcasts, a CMP tip of the month, as well as all of our resources for all things related to meeting professionals and CMP. Thanks.
Thanks, Dora.